Tonight's episode of the 31st Lap Podcast is brought to you by DirtTrackDigest.com. If it's on dirt, it's on Dirt Track Digest.
This is the 31st Lap Podcast, recorded live in the studios of FingerLakes1.com in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now, your host, Chris Marquardt.
Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the 31st Lap Podcast. We are back on the air after a little bit of a delay. It was somewhat unexpected. We had some planned time off at the end of June, and then that spiraled into some issues here up at the studio. It was so hot. This is an old school building that we're in, and it was so hot in the studio they didn't want us up here on the week after that because it got wicked hot up here in the Finger Lakes, and then we didn't even get a chance to enjoy that week off. I ended up with a little bit of a pneumonia issue, but that has since cleared itself out, at least in the at least according to the doctors. A little bit of a cough left, but it's nothing major, nothing that we're worried about. But it is nice to be back into the studio and talking a little bit about what racing did. And unfortunately, in terms of Stephen Evans, who's joining us on the hotline, the racing that didn't happen in and around New York. Unfortunately, the best weekend for racing, Stephen, that you guys had on the schedule at Woodhull Raceway, you were already slated to be off, which I guess that doesn't exactly lend itself well. Just as we were joking here before the show got started, you were joking that you've become this year's Utica Rome of the Southern Tier. Yeah,
definitely not a title. And the sad part is, Chris, is a joke. But I've been able to have many conversations with Bill Shea over the years doing media stuff that. It is not a title that anybody wants to have.
No.
When you're comparing your number of rainouts to the bad luck that they seem to have had right from the get-go of taking over Utica Rome. But we didn't have a great July. We had 4 events on the schedule for July, one of which was a tractor pull and 3 races, and we only got 1 race in the tractor pull. So everybody has been racing starved in July down here with us at Woodhull, and I'm hoping that the 50-50 chance we've got on Saturday swings our way, because otherwise we might have a mutiny down here in Steuben County.
It's other tracks have been a little bit better fortunes for themselves and able to get some stuff in. We had some racing scheduled last night that was held off due to the rain. That is that is the Jack Johnson tribute race that was scheduled over at Fonda Speedway. Coming up later this week, the Super Dirt Car Series is supposed to be doing the Bob St. Amans Memorial at Merrittville Speedway, and the Summer Nationals on the flip side of the weekend's going to be Monday and Tuesday next week. So some more Super Dirt Car Series action on deck right there. Hopefully they can dodge the rain. This weekend, like you said, Steven, you're looking at a 50-50 chance of getting it in. How's Woodhull been taking it as a whole, aside of the fan mutiny and things like that? What's this do to a track when you're in a situation like this? We always talk at the beginning of the year how important it is to get the races in, build that momentum up, and get things up and rolling. Now it happens in the middle of the season after you've had a really nice start. Yeah,
the last 3 rainouts we've had every different situation that you can have when you're looking at an iffy weather day. The first time we tried to have the sprint cars back in May, the weather forecast looked absolutely terrible. I mean, It looked bad enough that we thought, well, man, this is an easy call. We made the call at noon, decided to cancel. Weather changed, and we, the weather was such that we probably could have got the show in. So, Mother Nature fooled us on that one. We try and bring them back in June, and we get everybody at the racetrack and try to have the show, and then once everybody's there and we're ready to start hot laps, a big rainstorm came through, so we've got everybody there, and then it rained. And then the second scheduled show of the season in July, the weather was terrible. The forecast looked terrible all day, so we decided to cancel. And this time it actually did rain when it said it was supposed to. So we ended up making the right call. It took us 3 times to get it right, but we got it right on the third try. So, it's one of those deals. There's not a thing you can do about it. And for the shows that, last week or the weekend before that, July 21st, that was a show that, you never want to lose any show, but the weather, it looked crummy for, about 3 o'clock on. And, if you have a window of where that rain's going to stop, afternoon rain is not all that much of a bad thing at the racetrack because it's just less passes of the water truck you got to make. But when it doesn't stop, that's where you just, it's the worst case scenario. So it's, a little bit of a bummer, but, we're going to get back on track. We have got, starting Saturday night, we've got 5 more points races left to go, and it seems crazy to be saying that. But we've got 4 shows in August that are points-paying races. We've got a show with the Short Track Super Series coming up next Wednesday, 6 days from now, sprinkled in there too. And so we're going to be cramming a lot in here in the next 6 races. But in that time, we're going to have, our biggest payout of the year, and then we'll decide the championships that are coming up on Labor Day weekend. So we're going to finish strong. I got a good feeling about it.
Can you believe that we're talking about being 4 weeks from the end of the season?
I can't, honestly. And I think what has sped up that feeling for me is the fact that we've had so many, rain-canceled races or rain-affected races. They all came right at the midpoint of the season, and so now it's, within a blink of an eye, here we are sitting on August 2nd saying there's 5-point races left to go. And for some of these guys that are pretty close in point races, they're also looking at it and saying, okay, enough of this rain stuff, guys, because I got to catch the leader or I need more races to pad my lead or whatever. So it's, everybody's looking at that the same way for one reason or another.
On the topic of getting some races in, you had a chance to watch some pretty cool sportsman action at Paradise Speedway there a couple weeks back when Steve Gray picked up a win.
Yeah, I want to give a huge shout out there to the Starks from the Grit Series and Gary Pallone and Bill at Paradise Speedway. They gave me the opportunity to go up there and announce that show, and as oddly enough, that wasn't the first time that I've announced at Paradise. I announced there, I think I was probably 12 years old. I filled in one night for Don Dunham when he was working there. He was a longtime family friend, and so it wasn't the first time, but it was pretty special to me because I grew up going to races there with my dad. My dad raced go-karts before he stepped aside and let me jump in and race when I was 5-6 years old, and that's where I started. That's where I got my first win. That's where I've gotten a lot of meaningful wins and had a lot of family come to the races there to join us and got to watch a lot of race. I mean, I grew up, at the time I grew up racing there at Paradise, we raced go-karts in the afternoon, and then they raced the big cars at night, me being the sprint cars and pure stock, those kind of things.
Right.
And, watching Bubby and Lance Young and Lee Sanders was the big name over there. They were always trying to beat that 26 car. So, I mean, to go there, that made it a real special night for me. But on, the racing side of things, man, what a show that place puts on. Gary Pallone is the wizard of dirt track preparation. He always has been, always will be. He told me a few of his secrets after the races and told me that I'd be in a lot of trouble if I gave them away. But the way he was able to prep the bottom and the top of the track so that guys could use either lane and make both of them work for a tight little quarter-mile track, I'll tell you what a show the Sportsman cars put on. They had 26 cars there, and, in my opinion, and I know, everybody's got an opinion on it, but in my opinion, when you take an event that last year, nobody knew how it was going to go, and there were some drivers that didn't come out just with that uncertainty.
Right.
That came out this time. So they went from 16 or 17 cars in 2017 to 26 cars last week. And I really feel like the next time they do this, or even if you look to a show next year, they're going to be pushing 30 cars. They're going to be running a B main. And, to see that happening at Paradise is phenomenal. It really was.
How many started the A main? I didn't even think to look.
They started, so we had 26 cars. They were going to run a Consi. However, there were 2 cars that had issues. I know Nick Cooper was one. He had a problem, I think, with the drive shaft, his dad said. And another car that came out of the Ransomville, Buffalo area, DJ Gardner, he's a friend of Andrew Smith. That's a real formidable sportsman competitor. Mm-hmm. They both had problems in their heat race, and so they weren't going to make it for the Consi. So everybody ended up. So they started 24 cars for the feature.
That's tight.
So let me set the scene for you. Lap 1, turn 3. We had cars going 3 wide down the backstretch trying to make hay here on the first lap, right up the drop of the green. And I said right over the microphone, anybody who was at Paradise will tell you the same. I said, well, I have a 3 wide going into turn 3. That's not going to work. And then all of a sudden, and I can't remember what car it was, and so I can't tell you who it was or what, but they decided, hold my beer, watch this. We're going to make it 4 wide into turn 3 at Paradise.
Wow.
And how the rest of, and of course, when something like that happens, it doesn't happen for 20th position or 19th position. It happened for position number 4.
Right.
So it's in front of the whole field. How we didn't tear up half the field on that ordeal, I will never know. But only a couple cars got a little bit of damage out of that. But I think that set the tone right off the bat.
Right.
That these guys out here taking it easy because it's a little quarter-mile track. And the show was awesome.
That's great.
You had local guys up there in the front. The Guerri boys were up there. Nick led half of the race. And just, car got tight when the track got slick, and Steve Gray kind of snookered him on a restart, and another local guy there, Sex, picks up the big win. Mm-hmm. So it was a great show, it really was.
You had mentioned the Starks and everybody. What's the status now of the Fight Night Street Stocks?
Well, I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't want to speak for them on behalf of what's happening with the series. I have seen some and I know there was some disappointment. They had Street Stocks on the card there for that show, and I know they were disappointed with having 7 cars, but now that I live in Horseheads, Paradise is a little bit further of a trek than it used to be. So I had a lot of time to think about it on the way home. And Chris, this is where I land on it. And again, this is my opinion. Opinions are like people's backside. Everybody's got one. But
sure.
My take on it is, I don't know that judging the future success of Street Stocks at Paradise can be judged off of the first time they did it. I mean, this was the first time they had put Street Stocks on the card with the Grit Series for this event. I mean, this was only the second time this event has ever happened for the sportsmen. And so the way I look at it is I don't know that you can judge it based off of one time. And the other wrinkle to it, I mean, there's a couple wrinkles. Number one, it wasn't a sanctioned Fight Night Series race to begin with. So I know there was a lot of uproar from people about the fact that, it wasn't a Fight Night Series race. And so there's that. And then there's another thing to take into consideration. This race was on a Thursday night, and this is right on the heels of a 2-day show at Outlaw and other shows at other racetracks where guys are in tight point races.
Sure.
And they've only got, 4 or 5 shows left to score points, depending on what track you race at. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like the fact that it was on that Thursday before, the Outlaw Summer Nationals, I think that hurt some street stock numbers. And I talked to at least a handful of guys that said if that show's on a Tuesday, if that show's maybe on a Wednesday, that gives me 24, 48 hours where if a racing deal happens at the show at Paradise, I've got a couple days I can get my stuff back in order.
Sure.
So I'm ready to go for the Summer Nationals. So I have seen some posts. It sounds like the Fight Night Series actually has dissolved and gone away. But I hope that it doesn't go away just based on the turnout of that show, because I think there was a lot of factors that, if all the conditions are right, or as best you can get them, you have it not on the heels of a big 2-day show, or make it, I think the fact that it wasn't a series show, there's guys that were running Fight Night Series points that I'm sure if it was a series show, they would have been there. They would have been there to get the points. So, like I said, I hope that this is temporary, because I know that the street stock and we've seemed to beat that drum for years at Outlaw and Woodhall,
right,
is giving the street stocks a chance to be in center stage, and
without spending a lot of money, chance to go to a lot of different tracks. I mean, there's such a good future and such a good system in place there. The other option that we've got right now is the New York Superstock Series, and they're asphalt exclusively.
Yeah.
And I don't know if all these guys want to get away from the dirt. They've had a good thing going with the Grit Sportsman Series, Fight Night Street Stocks. I think it's a good positive thing for the racing community as a whole. Eventually, I hope that they take a step back and realize what this was, how special that race at Paradise was, and the fact that it was the first time through. Take a little bit of a look at the schedule and see what might fit better. And remember the point that you made just a little bit ago. The first year, some of the top names in sportsman racing opted not to go just because they wanted to see what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And
there's no reason to think that's not going to happen with the street stocks too right now.
Yep.
As a whole.
Was, of those 5 guys that I talked to, they were nervous. They hadn't run there before.
Mm-hmm.
They know it's a small, tight track. Rubbin's racing, things happen. But when you're staring down a point race, or you're staring down a 2-day show that you've got to run both days so you can get
right,
those show up points, it is tough. It makes them have to evaluate and make a decision, and sometimes that decision is one that we've got to sit out tonight because we're looking big picture here. So
sure.
I don't think you can blame them for doing that. But again, I agree with you, Chris. I think it's just got to be something where you can take it as a learning experience, and okay, how can we do this differently so that we see the car count go from 7 to 17 next year?
Right. Just take a breath. Everybody, just slow down and take a breath.
Yep.
On the topic of series racing, Danny Johnson coming away with a win on the 31st of July at Airborne Park Speedway. That was the Battle of Plattsburgh. Eric Rudolph winning on the big 2-day weekend at Weedsport Speedway. He took a win in the Hall of Fame 100, the Racing Stock 100 at Autodrome Drummond. That was won by Matt Shepard, Stu Friesen winning the night before that at the end of July over in Granby. Hall of Fame weekend was a big one for Weedsport Speedway. Dave Marcichelli coming away with a couple wins on the weekend. Kevin Root ended up taking the quote-unquote weekend war. Kevin Root dominating a little bit in terms of some of the scoring towers and stuff. Of course, the internet just dropped on me, so I can't get that window up right away. Sprint cars return, and Brent Marks coming away with a win. That was I believe that was his second World of Outlaws win there for him. Root, let's see if I can find that. That was Kevin Root getting that was the doubleheader bonus that was in play there. Blanked on the whole thing, couldn't come up with any of that for you. Sorry about that. Shift gears back over to this side of it. Tim Sears came away with a win In the 358 Modified Series, topping Larry White in their event at Brewerton Speedway last weekend, Ron Davis, Matt Williamson, and Gary Lindbergh took third place on that one. Ron Davis, Matt Williamson filling in the top 5. As we said, the Grit Series was over at Paradise. Steve Gray won there at Fulton. Ronnie Davis III won the unique E-Sigs 358 Modified Series 50-lapper. Larry White picked up his second place finish of the weekend over Jordan McCready. Scott Prentice and Greg Doust won Sportsman features. Chris Fleming, Matt Becker, and Doug Williams picked up wins as well. On Saturday night, good win for Danny Varon in the 360 sprint feature over Chuck Hebing and Jordan Thomas. Coleman Gulmick and Jeff Cook got top 5 finishings. Corey Costa won the modified portion over Jimmy LaRock and Brady Fultz. Steve Payne ended up in the top 5. He was 5th behind Kyle Coffey. Dave Marcichelli won that one in the Outlaw Sportsman Series event. Dustin Jordan, Brian Fish filling top 5. Brad Smith, Adam DePay. In the street stocks, Chris Woodard, Justin Elbridge picking up a win in the hobby stocks. Each of those guys taking home class wins. The Empire Super Sprints awarded show-up points for the 360 programs at Outlaw both Friday and Saturday. ESS comes back to race again this weekend, August the 4th at Atlanta Legends Raceway. Then the 10th at Can-Am and the 12th at Weedsport. Friday, Tommy Catalano won the modified feature, holding off Andy Lewis and Darrell Lewis. Barrett Shank won the Super Sixes feature, and Jacob Gustafson won the 4-cylinder feature. The New York Super Stocks competed in twin 20s. Chris Finicario won the first one. It was shortened by caution flags. I don't know if you read about this, Steven. It was cut to 16 laps due to the caution flags. They parked them, brought everybody back for the second one, and Nick Robinson won the second one. That one went the full 20 laps. Finicario was second place in that. It was the first time that Finicario didn't win this year in New York Superstock action. So he's got a pretty good year going for himself. Marek Yorker, Zach Sobotka winning the Sportsman Features held and can support with that 358 Tour race at Brewerton. Justin Williams and Quinn Wallace taking divisional wins, the Mod Lights and the 4-cylinders at Outlaw Friday. Matt Tanner won the first of 2 360 sprint finish features at Outlaw, part of those Summer Nationals, and Chuck Hebing won the second. Matt Shepard won the modified feature at Kyle Coffey and Steve Gray. Tommy Collins won the Sportsman. Rich Michaels won the IMCAs. Glenn Wertenauer won the Street Stocks. Adam Austin the 4-cylinders, and Jason Thomas and the Hobby Stocks taking those divisional wins. Again, just to clarify that, Dave Marcichelli won a couple times over the weekend, but it wasn't enough to get that extra bonus with a runner-up finish Sunday night. He took that $500 BA Custom Headers doubleheader challenge bonus for the best overall finish for the weekend. That went to Kevin Root. So, more action to come this weekend. Everybody's looking forward to that. I know you're chomping at the bit. You're also chomping at the bit to get your lawn cut. What's the weather like down there?
Well, we're coming up on some wet weather early in the morning tomorrow and all day tomorrow from what I hear. So I should have done it yesterday, but I didn't, and so now I'm looking out here and saying, okay, we better get it done tonight, or we're going to be baling hay here next week. So, yeah, it should be a good time.
Being under the weather, I fell behind on our backyard, and we ended up ripping all of our raspberry bushes out and took our rose bushes right down to the ground. The squirrels had decided that the chestnut tree next to us, it was a great source of food over the winter. The problem is that we had like 4 feet of snow in the backyard all winter long, so they never dug them up, and these things have turned into chestnut tree saplings. So we ended up just gutting everything out of there. And had to get everything. Try to reclaim a little bit of our forsythia bush that was in the backyard. The grass, however, has not yet been tended to. It's not quite knee high, so the town's not really going to say anything yet. So I think I got a couple more days. It's just between not feeling great with the pneumonia and the rain that we've had, I haven't been able to get the stars to align to the point where we're going to be able to get to it. Thankfully, the kids have been playing in the front yard, doing a lot of soccer, so they've been able to mat it down pretty good. It doesn't look as bad over the last couple of days as it did before.
It sounds like you need to make friends with somebody who has a goat.
I need to make friends with somebody who has a lawn service. That's probably the first.
There you go.
The plan B is the goat.
There you go.
Well, you all ready for the weekend?
Yeah, we're ready to go. We have the Jake Davis Memorial King of the Ring coming up. It's kind of a unique event that we have with the modifieds every year. It's in memory of Jake Davis, who is part of the Davis racing family down here in the Southern Tier, and and it's always a great event. It's basically a match race. We line everybody up 2 by 2, and they come out in pairs and run 2 laps. The winner moves on. The loser of that match race goes back to the pits and gets ready for the feature, and we go all the way down until we've got the last guy, and we call him the King of the Ring.
That's cool.
We've had 5 different King of the Rings. We've had 5 different winners, so we'll see if we can make it 6 on Saturday.
See if that trend continues.
And right now I'm looking, and according to the future cast, we've got a 70% chance of racing, so I'll take my odds on that.
So I thought for sure when you got to 70% chance and I heard the R start, I'm like, you're not going to do it. There's no chance of this thing getting in. But then you said racing. Okay, so that's
racing. Yeah, we're looking pretty good. So
fair quantifier. Hey, I know you got to go. I appreciate you coming and hanging out for a little while in our return, so to say, back on the air.
Oh, anytime, man. Anytime you need somebody to talk racing, you know who to call.
I sure do. We know how to get a hold of you. And I'm glad you had such a good time in Paradise. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a really good time, and thanks again to the Starks and Gary and Eileen and Bill, everybody from Paradise, for making that happen and making me feel welcome there. It was a nice homecoming.
Awesome. Well, I'm anticipating this. This will probably become a more frequent thing as they have the races coming back time and time again.
I hope so, and I think that what they've done so far is going to show people that it's a great event, and I think the more people that are seeing that now, they'll know that this is something that we all got to get behind.
Awesome. Hey, I'll let you go. I appreciate you coming on with us tonight.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for the time.
See you later.
All right.
There goes Stephen Ovens, off to try to beat the weather in more ways than one. He's trying to get the long cut tonight, made some time for us. We were running late. At one point, this thing was supposed to be on at 6 o'clock tonight, so we could jam it full a little bit more, make a little bit better splash in our return to the air, but it didn't. Stars didn't align. I was waiting on the T-shirts. Jason Oldfield with the Western New York Super Rod Association, who also hosts the Final Round Drag Racing podcast opposite the 31st lap. We had some shirts that were on order for him up in Rochester. He had to get the car loaded because he's getting ready to take off for a race in Ohio this weekend, big 2-day event for the Western New York Super Rod Association. So I went up there to grab the shirts for him and help coordinate the pickup. They were supposed to be done at 3. They didn't get done until we're coming right up on 5 o'clock. So I had to cut back from Humboldt Street back across 490 as everybody was leaving the city, which made travel a little bit more congested than we had planned. And then from there, drop him off at his house and turned around. And I was planning on picking up a suit at Men's Warehouse. So I was ready for the new job interview tomorrow morning. That didn't pan out quite the way we wanted it to either. But it is what it is. We beat feet from there. We left Victor right about 5:45 and made it here in time to get everything set up and come on the air and hang out with you guys. And our return to the air with episode number 243. Big thanks to Stephen Ovens for coming on. Talk a little bit about that. I'm glad that he had such a good time in Paradise. I know that race meant a lot to him to be there. Jim Mullen, who's been a frequent guest on the show, was also there. Had some of his mic equipment, was trying to make some contributions to that as well. Jim Mullen, of course, from the Finger Lakes Speed World fame. And so I know he's looking forward to getting back on the microphone and working a little bit with some of the go-kart tracks and some of the big car tracks in and around the Finger Lakes. So hopefully he finds a way to land on his feet as well. Well wishes to him. I know he's had some challenges with his baby there too. So I know he's been fighting the current some in his own right. Nonetheless, we are officially back. Again, 243. I think we're going to put it in the books this time around. We're going to be off for a week. So at this point, just to double check where the schedule falls, I don't think you're going to hear from us again until probably the 23rd, because the 16th we head down south for a couple days for our wedding anniversary. My lovely wife has booked some time through Airbnb. She planned on that since December, so the 16th we are going to be off. So next week will be final round, and then we'll come back on the 23rd and talk more racing with everybody. That is going to do it for us here in the FingerLakes1.com studios. We appreciate everybody hanging out. We'll see everybody on the 23rd. Thanks a lot.